Good afternoon, all my colleagues on the board at the other end. Now, I just want to initially make a couple of statements. One is purely personal. I am no sailor serving or superannuated, nor am I an oceanographer or ocean scientist. I am just a retired academic. The only reason and my credentials to be on board this webinar is that I have been consistently showing my academic interest in maritime affairs with special reference to India. That's the main reason. So please don't take seriously what I say about UDA, about which I don't know anything. In fact, I learned only out of this concept of late from Dr. Das. Secondly, there's something today a more generalized statement, but I mean very serious. Friends, for a country of our size, more so now when we are talking about Mahasagar, there are no enough research centers focused on maritime affairs. When I say, I mean it. In the university system of India, as of now, there is only one Center for Maritime Studies in Pondicherry University, which is very active. The center which I was heading, I made one or two more centers on India's maritime studies, unfortunately, have been closed down by the University Grants Commission. There are in the public domain supported by Government of India, partially or fully, like IDSA or National Maritime Foundation, etc. About them, I do not want to comment too much. They are doing human service. But I'm rather surprised, pleasantly delighted to share with all of you, outside the academic domain, outside the public establishment, I come across the Center for Maritime Research focusing on UDA by two pioneering people, senior colleague Dr. Prof. am I right, sir? And Dr. Arnav Das. I mean, these people are really giving a very good shape. I wish the best for the center and proud to be associated. Thank Dr. Das for having taken me into confidence into the activities of your own center. When I say it, I mean them. Now, having said this one, let me come to. I have been advised, Dr. Das, that why not I speak something about how underwater domain awareness can be contextualized what we are talking about maritime power. Dr. Das had a reason to suggest this to me. I just finished my book, supported by the Indian Council of World Affairs, India's Maritime Power. Maybe, hopefully, by the end of this year, the book should come out. But that apart, let me say, I have taken the view that in our country, reasonably good degree of research, debates are going on about India's naval power. Quite often than not, naval power is interchangeably used with maritime power. I am not disputing that one. It's quite common. But maritime power, if somebody takes a little bit of a more interest, is there is a subtle difference? No, rather substantial difference between these two concepts, naval power and maritime power. Maritime power has been of late in this country is being popularized only of late. And in that one, naval power is one of the components. I have read, I have spoken to some of my naval colleagues. They do admit, when you say India's maritime power, the Navy, of course, is an important factor. But there are other components to the India's maritime power, which more than me, as a professional, now as a researcher, as an organizer of this center, Dr. Das explained in very lucidly in the beginning, in the introductory. I would rather say this one. What is it that doesn't go into maritime power? Is it concerned only the factoring sea and the resources into the national perspective? I would rather say, as a student of Indian development, etc., maritime power is an important dimension of India's national power. Maritime power by Indian scholars, more senior, more learned than me say, it includes shipping, port construction, fishing modernization, so on and so forth. Of course, the merchant navy, very important one, and conducting ocean research, development of ocean technologies, so on and so forth. Let's now say to what extent the government of India has introduced, if at all, any important policy initiatives which can complement India's maritime power. I am of the opinion, friends, either in the public domain in terms of research or at the government level, the concept of maritime power of India is gaining encouragement, momentum only in the last a decade and a half. This is my submission. And if we see from the government point of view, yes, some important, rather very important policy initiatives have been introduced, which will definitely go into the different components of what we call maritime power. As Dr. Das had been mentioning, Sagaramala, India's first ever National Maritime Summit held at Mumbai, which emphasized constructing more and more shipyards. Then the more recently introduced Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, then also giving more encouragement and bringing private sector into national shipbuilding enterprises. Then more importantly now, what is called the National Deep Ocean Mission. Excuse me. National Deep Ocean Mission, in fact, touches upon more solid, deeper aspects of complementing the sea, its vast resources, etc., to national development with particular regard to the maritime development. Of late, I hear, somebody can correct me, maritime development also is a factor that is incorporated into what we call the Maritime Vision of India 2030. In fact, I read and I wrote quite a bit about India's maritime vision in my forthcoming book. The Maritime Vision 2030 clearly says, among its objectives, quote, enhancing India's global stature as a maritime power, unquote, is one of the stated objectives of 2030 Maritime Vision of India published by Government of India, Ministry of Shipping, Ports and Inland Waterways. Later on, I am sure many informed scholars the other end would know that Maritime Amrit Kal Vision 1947, more recent one, This lays down the charter of developing India's maritime resources, etc., living, non-living, and how the vast marine resources of the country can be factored into the national development. The 1947 Maritime Amritkal Vision is a more enlarged vision, charter, sketch of the 2030 maritime. So friends, I may at the cost of repetition, I may say, Sagarmala, the two maritime visions, 2030, 2047, then the maritime summits, emphasizing on shipbuilding, deep post mission, etc. These are most important policy initiatives which have been of late introduced by government of India. Now, one thing I want to say, deep ocean mission, being a non-ocean science student, I really could not understand. I spoke to some of my friends and I did a bit of reading. Deep ocean mission really emphasizes substantially deepening India's public interest to galvanize, to leverage the ocean floor, underwater ocean floor resources such as minerals, etc., for the national development. I understand already under this mission called DOM, operation vehicle called Samudrayan, and its supplementary Matcha 6000 have been launched. I checked carefully myself. The minister concerned for this Ministry of Ports and Shipping made a statement that Samudrayan and Matcha have already been launched and they are doing reasonably good work. These are what I mean to say, policy statements, operational vehicles, which have been put into action, but more recently by the Indian government. This is something some of us who are more interested in the maritime affairs of India should really compliment, should be happy about it. That my country, our country, though belatedly, has been evincing important interest in order to harvest, factor the ocean around us into the overall national growth, maritime power of this country. Having said this, quickly I may go to the second part of my presentation. I may raise issue, but I do not have answers, frankly speaking. Do we have the requisite instrumentation or technologies in order to see that these very ambitious and also very expensive programs like Deep Ocean Mission to execute them? My humble question here is, this is rather my inquiry with the distinguished colleagues who I learned across this webinar. I'm only raising it. How far, to what extent India is reasonably equipped with the technologies and instruments that go deep into the ocean, which Dr. Das is calling underwater domain awareness, domain research. Whatever the little information that I've gathered is, we have made some initial attempts. However, by way of adding a rider, but not criticizing, we have to go quite a long way to acquire the requisite deep water or underwater technologies. Let me only remind my well-informed scholars, sailors, etc. Long ago, way back in 1969 at Visakhapatnam Eastern Naval Command, a National Science and Technological Laboratory was established. Its purpose was to help underwater combat missions with particular reference to the submarines, their acoustics, combat capabilities, etc. Mind you, 1969. Later, we have got the NIOT in course in my city, Hyderabad. Sir, please remind me when the time is up, Dr. Das. Is my time up?
1 minute, please, sir.
Sir?
1 minute, sir. 1 minute for you.
Yes, sir. 1 minute, I'll complete. NIOT, then what I'm saying, INCOIS, of course, NIO. Some of these national institutions in their role have contributed to underwater domain awareness and repeat technologies. However, informed people say that we do not still as yet have UDA technologies to meet some of the policy initiatives like deep water or DOM, DOM missions, etc. I'm rather surprised, and with this I shall complete. Whatever the technologies we are acquiring, particularly from America, is essentially meant for SAGAR, but within SAGAR, only to a security component of the SAGAR. Mind you, SAGAR has two important components, security and growth. But we need to apply UDA technology for growth purposes, but informed people say, A, we don't have enough technologies for growth to build maritime power. Secondly, we have to acquire them friendly nations. I believe we are acquiring from America already. Lastly, my friends, with a concluding note I may submit, I am rather surprised. Sailing naval officers recently published a book. Its title is Indian Navy's Vision 2047. About 15 to 20 serving naval officers have contributed, in which I am rather surprised. Very frankly, some of the middle-level senior naval officers, including a rear admiral, admitted we do not have technologies sufficient enough to achieve the ambitious maritime power initiative that have been launched. We have to acquire them. Thank you all, my colleagues, having patiently borne with non-sailor, non-oceanographic talker. In particular, once again, I profusely thank and congratulate Dr. Arnab Das for having given me this opportunity to be present with you on this webinar platform. Thank you all.